Previously on Woodbrew.
So we are super excited to build a teardrop camper from scratch.
Alright guys, it is Fix It February, which is the month that we partner with iFixit to bring awareness to your right to repair. But what the heck even is your right to repair?
It's simply your right to have access to the parts, information, and tools to repair your own things. Your right to repair is freedom. Now, your right to repair is constantly under attack by the same manufacturers and corporations that sold you the products. They're trying to make it more and more difficult for you to have access to those parts and information to be able to fix your own things.
So I encourage you guys to check the links in the description below to learn more about iFixit and your right to repair. And for the rest of this month, every single week, we're going to be doing a giveaway with iFixit where you can win a bundle of their fix mat, some other merch, a tool set, some cool goodies. Robin actually won in the last one. So in the next video, you'll be able to comment down below to enter to win, not this video. So you want to be sure to subscribe and come back to the next video to enter next week's giveaway. And again, we want to thank iFixit for partnering with us on this series and their constant fight for your right to repair.
We're getting started by loading some 3/4 inch rigid EPS foam onto our Avid 5x5 CNC machine. This thing has been an absolute workhorse on this project, and this is the first time we've ever actually cut any sort of foam on it, and I didn't have a lot of time to do much testing, so I didn't really get my feeds and speeds correct, nor was I using probably the correct bit for this. So if you have any tips for how to cut foam on a CNC machine, be sure to comment down below. I'd love to hear some insight on that, as I don't think we got the best results we could have. I ended up babying this foam a lot and sitting around sort of watching it cut just to make sure that there wasn't any issues, because like I said, I've never cut this before, so I wasn't sure how well the tabs would work, but ultimately it worked out really well. I also want to point out that in the background you'll see my friend Luke, who is the person we're actually building this camper for, and he came by the shop for the first 2 days of the project and helped sand all of the parts, and I mean all the parts. It was 2 full days of sanding, so thank you very much, Luke, for that, because that saved me a lot of sanding. With all the insulation cut, it was back to breaking down sheet goods. In this instance, it's 1/4 inch birch plywood, which is going to be the interior of the entire camper. So I'm loading up some more sheets. Again, on the CNC, I'm using that composite nailer to get everything nailed down and running the programs again. This 1/4 inch is a little tricky because it tries to bow up. So you have to kind of use some thicker tabs than normal, I've found. But overall, this ended up working out really well. And when I was able to get all of our pieces cut out with only one minor mistake, which is going to lead to us having to unfortunately buy an extra sheet good, but you know what, that's the way it goes sometimes with these types of projects.
So what we're doing is, show you this, well I'll put this up on the screen for you. We're making the interior frame, which is made up of a whole bunch of 3/4 inch pieces that have a whole bunch of pockets cut in them for wire channeling and things, a whole bunch of dovetails and other joints to make it all snap together, you know, in theory. So we're getting all the pieces laid out, kind of using this rendering as a diagram to help us get it laid out, and then we'll snap it all together. And yeah, this is the first, I guess, big test of whether or not everything we've done so far is correct.
No pressure.
You know, first piece, let's see if these joints work. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
I mean, they should be very tight. You're not affected by the loud hammering? Well, I would call that a tight joint. I'm pretty sure you can stand on that. Look at there. Now that's pretty slick. Look at that. I'm pretty happy with that. Look at that. How strong and stiff it is. Obviously no glue, it's just extremely tight joints. And there we go, there's our inner frame. And the cool thing about doing it like this, where there's a bunch of pieces, is that you really optimize the sheet good usage, because you would think, okay, I'm just using one sheet good here and I'm just cutting these things out, but then you're left with all these random voids and things, and then you have the offcuts here and stuff. So by breaking these out and then turning them to where they're all parallel with one another on the sheet, you get a lot more efficient use of your material goods, and you just get this sort of snap together frame that once the outer skin and inner skin are glued to it are going to be, you know, stronger than ever. So
I want to reiterate that this method actually ended up saving us over 10 sheets of plywood. So not only does that save a lot of money, but it also saves, obviously a lot of material and waste overall. So this ended up working extremely well, and I was genuinely blown away by the strength of the end product.
that one fits there. That's the same size as that. Not the same size as that. So that one fit here. Yes. Oh, jeez.
That looks more like it.
Strong. That's a really strong joint.
I ended up doing these joints literally everywhere that I could fit, including simple things like these little kitchen brackets that are going to hold up the countertop. Even just tiny little things like this saves about a 12 by 12 piece of plywood on every single one, and because you're able to stack them side by side, it really just makes it so much more efficient. And with that out of the way, it's time to move on to the actual roof panels.
So this is the actual top of our roof, the center section, and this hole here is for the roof fan, and then these will have some insulation in them, and then these are actually for some support sort of beams that go on the interior that will slot into here and give the roof extra support so that we can have a roof rack on it if we ever decide to. And then also,
If they ever decide to.
Yeah, if they ever decide to. We keep saying we. But these are slots cut into here. There will also be slots cut into the foam itself. And so, as you can imagine, this comes up from the side wall this way, and a wire can come into the fan, and then also a wire can come this way and go to a light. If they ever choose to, we're actually not putting a light in the center, but there will be a wire ran to the center of the ceiling so that in the event they want a light in the future, they can have one. But yeah, this thing is very rigid with these dovetails. I would say it's as rigid. I'd probably snap the plywood before I snap the joint. But I would say it's as rigid as cutting this out whole, except for it saves so much material doing it this way. So yeah, it's working out really, really well. See if this works. Sister? Hi, sister. How you doing, sister?
Sister.
Sister. Sister. Put your head from here. There you go. Goodness.
When I was designing this camper, I tried to make every single part an integral part of the actual structure, just to tie everything together to make it as rigid as possible. So things like this simple kitchen shelf here that I'm assembling now, which kind of makes no sense, It will make more sense as we start actually assembling things, because this is going to end up tying the walls together and the partition wall that separates the front to the back of the camper, and it'll actually become a structural part of the camper itself.
Wow, that's really tight. Oh, she's gonna be rigid. Oh, this is cool. Gosh,
That's the right way, right?
Yeah, what you talking about? And they should be flush on the outside, not the inside. Don't stare at me like that. This right here is about to be freaking cool. Check this thing out. This is freaking awesome. Now, it's not perfect because some of my parts broke, so we're actually gonna have to recut some parts, but I'll show you the mistake I made. And this is an easy mistake to make when you're modeling stuff in CAD, because it's hard to like visualize in real life how big or small it's gonna be. So in CAD, these ribs look substantial enough. However, there's really not enough meat here for this area in here to not break out, because these are really tight fits. So I got most of these on without issue, but these two broke right there. And when you're using this, like, you know, not cabinet grade type plywood where there are definitely some overlaps and voids and stuff, you know, problems like that can be even more pronounced, because you could just be in a bad spot in the plywood right there, and if it lands in that weak spot already, then it's even weaker. So I'm gonna go back to the drawing board and redesign just these ribs, but I think these cross members are definitely stiff enough for this and seem to hold together pretty well. But this is freaking awesome to see. Just imagine, so side profile camper, right? Camper's about this tall, give or take, and then this thing opens up.
And you got your kitchen.
That's gonna be pretty sweet. This is a pretty nerve-wracking part here. I guess this part isn't that, I don't know, I guess it is critical. This is just making me nervous, because once we glue this down, which is what we're about to do, you know, it is what it is. We're just stuck with it. Gotta get it aligned right, and then we have to run all the wires in it, and then we put the insulation, and then we put the 1/4 inch interior, and then we're really set. But
it's just a little glue.
it's a lot of glue. A lot of glue. And I don't really know the best way, like, should we put the other piece down on top of this? Probably. Probably should do it the other way. No. Actually, I'm gonna trace this and then put the glue on that and then lay it. That's what we're gonna do.
In hindsight, we could have done this a bit better by using a lot of clamps like you'll see us do for the interior panels, and we didn't get the best glue joints in some areas and ended up having to reinforce things with extra screws. So if I was to do this again, I would simply try to use as many clamps as possible and potentially do 1/2 at a time by separating these interior frame parts and then adding them in next. So yeah, if I was to do this again, I would do it a little bit differently, but ultimately ended up working out just fine.
Oh!
What?
I made a noise.
What?
I made a noise.
Okay. Will you help me?
Well, I thought you were doing it all by yourself. Watch the camera.
No crap.
Watch the camera.
No crap. Could be a better fit.
CNCs, eh? Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Wow. And just, wow. Now that's cool right there.
Even though all these parts are cut on a CNC, it was really difficult to get them perfectly aligned, so I didn't really worry about that too much. I just made sure that I came back with this flush trim router and flushed everything up to the exterior panel, which is the part that was cut in the largest section, so it would be the absolute most accurate compared to the frame that has a lot of joints. And then we could actually move on to the interior panels, which are those 1/4 inch ply, and I didn't want any fasteners to show here anywhere, so we just basically used every clamp that we had. If you look closely, you may also notice that these interior panels were using the B side of the plywood, not the absolute best side. It has some knots in it, a lot of different variation in colors, and we did that on purpose because we didn't want a stale interior. We wanted some character inside this camper.
All right, I'll walk you through the wiring very quickly. This wiring is actually for several different things that go on inside the camper, but it's not all the wiring for the camper. A lot of the wiring is going to be in the floor, but in the wall, in particular on the passenger side, we have 3 wires. They're all coming in through this channel, which is going to actually end up in the floor system down there, and there's a lot of extra wire that I've bundled up so that it can run over to our fuses. And so they've come up through here, and the first one dives down through this hole right here, which is actually on the outside top right next to the door, which is going to be a porch light. And when I did that, I made sure to use 2 layers of heat shrink tubing, and I also cut in sort of a ramp leading into the hole using just a drill bit on an angle. That way the wire follows into this nice easy turn out of the camper and is protected, so that, you know, when this thing's bouncing down the road, hopefully we don't get any chafing and any wire damage. Then there are 2 more pairs of wires that run down to here, which is going to turn and go into the roof system, and that is going to be for the fan that's on the middle of the roof, and then also just an extra set of wires up there just in case we want to add something later, whether it be on the roof or in the middle of the ceiling. There will be wires in there already. This wire is definitely overkill on the gauge, but this entire system is going to just be simply 12 volts. So yeah, we're going to close all this in. None of these are getting taped in or glued in or anything. They're just free floating in these channels, so that if we ever, hopefully we don't, have to replace any of these wires, we should just be able to pull through a new pair of wires using the existing wires that are in there. So yeah, we are ready to glue up now.
Close her in.
Close her in and hope for the best. So I'm getting ready to cut out all of the new parts for the hatch, but I wanted to address a couple things that I saw in the comments from our last video. First of all is how we're holding down our material. This is called an Omer composite nail gun. So it shoots these composite nails so they can actually be cut through with the CNC and not damage any of your bits, which is pretty cool. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can pick one of these up. This thing is invaluable when it comes to holding down tricky parts and things, but it makes even large sheet goods stuff just super easy, because once you are done, all you have to do is just sort of hit it with a hammer a little bit and it'll just break off, and they'll break off pretty much flush. So it's super easy to manage big sheet goods. And then also I want to show you how I'm actually holding down the front of the material and indexing every part. So every single sheet good is indexed from the bottom left-hand corner, and I just went to the furthest point on the x-axis, so left, bottom left, and I aligned every sheet that way. So it didn't matter whether the sheet was 61 inches, which is the full width, or it was only 35 inches. Every single one is 48 inches tall, so in the programs, all I had to do is just make sure that everything was width-wise in the X direction, if that makes sense, so that when I cut my sheet goods down, I never had to re-zero the machine or do anything like that. The work zero was always exactly the same, which just means that the CNC starts at the same spot. And I used basically 2 scraps of the same material thickness to make, first of all, a fence to hit and reference off of the front of the machine, but then I just actually drilled a second one on top of that so that it creates a lip and it holds down the entire width of the material pretty much holds it down, doesn't require any fasteners or anything. Super simple to slide it under there. If your material has any sort of bow in it, that will take it out. And yeah, so that's how we're holding everything down. Thought I would address that. About to get this thing started up today and cut out the rest of our parts.
If you look closely at the end of this clip, you'll notice that a piece actually breaks off on the front and have to quickly grab it out of the way of the CNC so that it doesn't run into it. This was a really close call and actually ended up messing it up, so I had to cut another one.
Second time's the charm.
Yep, round 2. Here is our new piece. All the old pieces are broken in half, so I wouldn't show you that. But so this is the new piece. It has an extra inch of material here, so should add quite a lot of strength. Let's put it together, see how it goes. I don't really know the best way to do this.
What do you mean?
Like, do I put them all in on that one and then go down? I don't really know what the best way to do this is. I'm gonna try that this time.
In hindsight, I probably should have made these joints a bit looser so they were easier to assemble, but after using a clamp, that made quick work of closing these joints up and ended up making a very rigid frame that sort of stayed together on its own, which is very nice, so that you don't have to constantly, keep things pushed together and tight as you're doing the glue up in the end. So I don't know. I guess maybe I would have tried to make it a little less tight, but at the same time it ended up working out pretty well having them as tight as they were. It just made assembly a bit tougher.
Whoa. Ow!
Oh gosh.
Ow, Dom.
You're gonna leave it there?
Hit that little thing right on top of your hat.
Oh.
Ugh. This is way more rigid, like significantly more rigid than the last design. And then once we get the plywood on it, it'll be obviously even more rigid, but pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
So we ended up getting a lot more done in this video than I thought we would have. We have both of the side panels all the way done. They have all the wiring inside of them. They're completely ready to be assembled. We have the hatch structure done, and we also put together the majority of the other parts. In the next video, we're going to be doing some more of these glue ups to get all of our wall panels and roof panels done, and we'll actually get the floor put down on the ground and start assembling in the next video. So this thing's really going to start transforming into a camper. So I just want to say thank you guys, and I hope you're enjoying this series. This has been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of challenges and sort of, I don't know, a lot of pleasure in building this. This is, really exercised my brain a lot, and I hope you're finding it, educational or inspiring in some way. I want to say that we also appreciate all the comments we got in the last video. There was so much positivity, and just wanted to say thank you. So if you will, leave another comment down below. Let us know if you made it here to the end. And with that, we'll see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, do all the things. You're going to want to stick around. I think this is going to be like one of our best projects to date. So, see y'all later. Peace.
No.